Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello and welcome, football fans, to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Davis Ellington, and we're going to get things rolling right off the bat today, getting ready for Week 1, and we're going to be looking around the league in preparation for Sunday's litany of games, including a couple Monday night games as well. But first, we're going to look back on Thursday Night Football, the opening game of the season, and it's between the two biggest rivals the NFL has seen, the Chicago Bears playing host to the Green Bay Packers, and in a much anticipated matchup here between these two teams, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers looking to rebound from last year. A lot of inconsistency, a lot of disgruntled attitudes between Aaron Rodgers and the coaching staff and Mike McCarthy and all them trying to get on the same page offensively. They were looking to turn over a new leaf, and it was supposed to start in Game 1. Aaron Jones, a hyped-up running back, was supposed to be the key to a more run-centered offense for the Packers. And then on the other side of the field, with Matt Nagy's Chicago Bears playing at home, looking for a big statement win against the Green Bay Packers as the Chicago Bears, entered the season as one of the top Super Bowl picks as people were getting ready for the season to get underway. And with that defense, why not? Khalil Mack, of course, still the headliner of that front seven, but my goodness, so many fantastic athletes. Leonard Floyd, outstanding game for him against the Packers. He was making waves. Akeem Hicks, fantastic as well. Clinton Dix in the secondary. Amos, of course, with the huge interception to seal the game was on the Packers, however, as he no longer is a Bear and he came back to bite him. But the defense for the Chicago Bears doing so well in that game and just not able to get enough offense was the Bears, and they fall by a final of 10-3. And Mitch Trubisky looked so lost in that offense and against that Green Bay defense. And you got to credit the Packers defense for absolutely shutting down the Matt Nagy offense. Trubisky looked lost. He couldn't really get any sort of completions going. Tried to look downfield. That was really never open. Amos with that pick in the end zone when Trubisky tried to force it into double coverage. And you just saw the Bears. They were trying to do whatever they could. They were getting the ball to Tariq Cohen in space. The Packers were just gang tackling him whenever he touched the ball. David Montgomery looked decent out of the backfield. The rookie coming into the season with so much hype around him. He was breaking tackles as advertised, but just so many Packers were right on him. He really could never get in space to make any big plays happen. So they leaned on the right arm of Trubisky, and it just was not there for the Chicago Bears. And in his third year now, the Bears are really looking for Trubisky to be the guy for them, because you have this defense that is so good. And you saw in the first quarter of that game, they looked like they were just trying to murder every single person in green and white out on the field. The Packers looked absolutely terrified. That defensive front for the Chicago Bears, just so good for them in that game. And you really just had to tip your cap to them in the early going. The Packers able to squeak that touchdown across in that second quarter when they really got something going. Rodgers broke out for a couple big passes, and that was the only touchdown of the game. As we talked about, Trubisky just really could not get anything offensively going. And if you're the Bears, you don't want to hit the panic button. It's just week 1, but you do have to definitely reevaluate Trubisky. He's got to come through for you in these next couple of games, get you some wins, keep you around, because the Packers kind of stole one there. They looked like they were getting outplayed every time they touched the ball when they were going up against that Bears defense. But if Trubisky can't get you there, it's just not going to happen. You can't really play around a quarterback if they're not getting you in the end zone at least a couple times in a game. We saw Peyton Manning with the Denver Broncos defense take that Super Bowl victory, as Peyton Manning kind of rode the coattails of Von Miller and that Denver defensive front, as they were so good, able to get him that victory and that second Super Bowl to retire on. And that's kind of what the Bears are going to have to do if they want to make it all the way and host the Lombardi Trophy. They got to use that defense, and Trubisky has to be passable at least to get them there to score just enough points. We've seen it a couple times where defenses have been able to carry teams all the way to a Super Bowl. The Ravens have done it a couple times in 2000. Ray Lewis, as a young middle linebacker, when they were able to take down the Oakland Raiders to get to the Super Bowl, and that where the only touchdown scored in that AFC Championship game was defensively by the Ravens. So you got to think that the Bears, they know they have a great shot, and if they can get Trubisky to just produce enough to give that defense a chance, they're going to win a lot of football games. So you don't want to panic too much after week one, but you definitely kind of need to be on top of the situation there for Chicago. And on the other side, Green Bay, they look kind of lost all game. Of course, most of that credit goes to the Chicago Bears defensive front just being all over Rodgers and Aaron Jones in that backfield. However, you could clearly see that the Green Bay Packers were not committed to the run as much as they wanted to, as much as they advertised going into that game and into this season. They've hyped up Aaron Jones. They've talked so much about how they want to be a run-first offense and let Rodgers kind of, run the system from there and then pick and choose his times to take his shots by drawing the defenses in and then going up over the top with single high safety looks. And last night you saw as the game went on, they leaned on Rodgers more and more. They went away from the run game, even though they were ahead in the ball game, and with the two great defenses battling, all they really had to do was kind of run that ball with Aaron Jones, get some pressure, get through, and get a couple first downs. But they were looking to Rodgers' right arm, and they gave the chances back to the Bears, and they just could not capitalize. And that really showed when they looked like all the Packers had to do was get one first down late in the fourth quarter. Second down, they got 5 yards on the handoff on 1st and 10. And what do? They try to throw a little bubble screen action there. It was incomplete, and they ended up having to punt the ball back to the Bears, give them one last shot at it. But why not run the ball in that scenario? You just got 5 yards from your running back. Just go back at it again. You got 2 more shots to get 5 yards. A first down ends the game. You also can make the Bears use timeouts, push it downfield, and that just never really happened. And because of that, the Bears got a shot, but of course, Trubisky just could not come through for them. But that week one matchup, so big as we kind of get a real look at two of those teams out in the NFC, and it was real interesting to watch. A lot of people talked about how boring it was because of the defensive matchups in that game, but really it was like a great pitcher's duel in baseball. You got to watch two artists go to work, one team after another, forcing punts, a field position game. It was a real chess match between these two teams, and in the end, Rodgers and the Packers able to push through. They forced Trubisky into just one too many mistakes. That final drive, he was starting to look like he was putting it together, was Trubisky, and then that ill-advised throw trying to go to the back corner of the end zone, no chance. The safety right over the top there on that play, able to pick it off, and it ends up leading to the result that was a 10-3 Green Bay win in Soldier Field. And what a huge win that is for them. They go there in week one, they get that win, and now they don't have to see the Bears for a while. They also have 5 out of the next 6 games at home at Lambeau Field. So really big start to the season for the Packers. Not only are they 1-0, but now they can lean on that home field advantage to try to get a really hot start to the first half of this season. Meanwhile, if you're the Bears, you leave that game thinking a lot about the missed opportunities, of course, but now you have to look ahead to week 2, and you got to think about what you're going to do with this offense. What is your identity here? Last season, it was a lot of Tariq Cohen. He was a real surprise, but he was so quick, like Darren Sproles 2.0. He made defenders miss. You get him in space, especially with blockers, and he was just unstoppable. Trubisky looked so good in his year 2 season, and then, of course, kind of fell off, and we saw him in game 1 here. He needs to find a way to rebound from that and really right the ship. We saw Allen Robinson, a tremendous receiver for the Bears, really show his stuff. He's been robbed of a couple seasons. He had that ACL tear when he was in Jacksonville, right when it looked like he was going to really become one of the elite wide receivers in the league. Missed a whole year. Didn't really look right after, but he looks like he's 100% healthy out on the football field. It really showed in that game. Every chance he had, he made some big plays for his Bears to keep them in it offensively. So him and Cohen look like some really good weapons. David Montgomery looks like he is going to morph into a more than serviceable running back for this Bears team. It really just all falls on Mitch Trubisky. He didn't have his safety valve in the game. Trey Burton, the tight end, was out for this contest. Going to look to get him back and get Trubisky that extra option out of the passing game. But really, the Bears are in an interesting spot. We're going to have to see what they do week 2, what changes they make. And if you're a Packers fan, you're so excited your team able to snag game 1 of the season. And now you're set up for a really strong first half. Aaron Rodgers and the team, though their identity is not fully set right now, it still looks like they're doing the right things just to win ball games. And with a surprising defensive effort a little bit from that Packers team, they look poised to make a bit of a run this season. So we're going to have to watch out for them in that NFC playoff picture as the season goes on. But we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to look around the league for the rest of the week 1 matchups here on the GSMC Podcast Network.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As we get settled back in here, going to look around the league at Week 1 matchups across the NFL as the season really gets underway come Sunday. And we're going to look at some of the big matchups around the league and talk about a couple of the key things to watch out for in some bigger games in the league. And one of the first ones we want to look at is the Kansas City Chiefs up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. A really big game, even though a lot of people are writing it off as the Kansas City Chiefs are just going to go in there and just mollywop this Jacksonville team. However, you got to think of the storylines forming here. You got Patrick Mahomes in his second season as the Chiefs starting quarterback. He dazzled in his first season, of course. He throws for 50 touchdown passes, just lights the league on fire. The no-look pass, he makes it a bit more of a thing. All the throws on the run, using his feet, spreading the ball out. He was just fantastic in that Andy Reid offense. But he's going to go up against a Jacksonville Jaguars team, one of the most solid defenses in the National Football League, and they're going to come out and they're going to test Mahomes Week 1. They've had all this extra time to prep for this Chiefs offense. They don't have to worry about Kareem Hunt. Their eyes are going to have to turn to Damian Williams in that backfield. And it's going to be big to see what Williams can do in Week 1 for his Kansas City team now that he is that lead bell cow back. Of course, they have Darwin Thompson behind him, the rookie, super fast, looking to be a little bit of a change of pace back. And they signed LaShawn McCoy as well. And McCoy, of course, has a really good relationship with Andy Reid. It'll be interesting to see how the veteran running back works into this system and how many snaps he takes for himself in this offense. So Damian Williams looks like he might be kind of just edged into this really lead running back role, at least at the start. So that'll be a definite thing to watch as you see that offense play out. But of course, Tyreek Hill just got signed to a new deal. He's ready to go. Travis Kelce, the weapons are all there for Mahomes, but we on the Jacksonville side of the ball, that defense so stout, and an offense that's not too bad for themselves. You got Leonard Fournette back looking and talking like he's better than ever, so he's going to be a guy that you got to keep your eye on, looking to come out and have a big year for the Jaguars at the running back spot. He's a guy that can absolutely do that. We saw so much highlight reel film of him from LSU, a really, really great player there. He lit the league up in year one. Of course, last year, a real downturn for Fournette, but he looks like he's back and ready to go. And Nick Foles at quarterback, what's going to happen there? He's got to prove to his new team and to his new fan base that he's going to be the guy for them. They got all the way to the AFC Championship game a couple seasons ago, oh so close to beating the Patriots to get to that Super Bowl, just could not put the finishing touches on it. And now with Blake Bortles gone, Foles is expected to lead this team not just to the playoffs, but even to a few playoff wins and really make some noise in the AFC. So this is a matchup really of two stout teams, both offensively and defensively. D.D. Westbrook and the wide receiver core for Jacksonville are going to really need to show up come Sunday and get themselves open, get themselves in space, and allow Foles to really establish a rhythm in that game. So that's going to definitely be something to watch out for. A big matchup down in Florida, and then, of course, when we look to the Cleveland Browns, it's time to really put up or shut up for the Cleveland Browns. There's been so much hype around this Cleveland team that they're finally going to really be the team to break out and get that squad back on the map. They have so much talent in that clubhouse. Really, you got Nick Chubb, fantastic running back. You also have Kareem Hunt when he gets back from suspension. You, of course, have Baker Mayfield under center, a fantastic rookie season, looking to build on that here in year two. You go out, you get Jarvis Landry, and, of course, you land the whale of Odell Beckham Jr., two fantastic wide receivers, one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL now on this team. Can't forget either about David Njoku, the tight end for Cleveland. So much raw talent in that body of his. It'll be interesting to see this offense with all these weapons. Can they put it together and make some drives and get some wins early on in the season? And it's really going to be on Baker to orchestrate this offense. We saw him do so well with that high power, high octane offense in Oklahoma with all those weapons. He spread the ball out so well. It put defenses in a tizzy because they just couldn't really lock in on any one player because of the way Baker was able to scan the field and disperse the plays. So that'll be something to definitely watch offensively. And the defense of the Cleveland Browns looking pretty solid this season as well, led by Myles Garrett, and it'll be a fun unit to watch if they can back up their offense. And with Mayfield and Odell and Nick Chubb, if he does what he's supposed to do, if all these guys produce, then you're going to have a defense that's going to be well-rested most of the time, as their offense will be able to put together lengthy drives, hopefully, or at least just a couple of first downs, give their defense a chance to rest. That's one of the toughest things in the National Football League as a defense. You can have all the talent you want, but if you're tired, if you're gassed, if you have your hands on your knees come the third quarter, you're going to get lit up for some big-time points in that second half. So look for this defense to really be rested and attacking on all cylinders as they're going to go after these offenses. As long as the Browns offense can stay on the field, Myles Garrett can lead this defensive unit to a pretty solid season, it looks like. So that'll be a fun game to watch. Of course, all the hype around Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield makes it an intriguing matchup. And then you go to the Sunday night game, the big one, Pittsburgh and New England. It's in Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. A great matchup between two fantastic teams, two amazing Hall of Fame quarterbacks. You got Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady. It's what you're looking for week one, Sunday Night Football, the two teams that you're expecting really in the AFC playoff picture every single year are going to be button heads once again. Ben Roethlisberger leading a team now with no Antonio Brown, no Le'Veon Bell. The training wheels are off for James Conner in that backfield. He's got to really produce. He has Jalen Samuels behind him, who's a pretty good talent. He had a couple good games to end the season last year. He's in the backup role, but Connor is going to be getting all the touches he wants from Ben Roethlisberger, handing the ball off, dumping the ball off to him in the flat. They're going to look to get their big playmaker in space. And, of course, Juju Smith-Schuster going into his third season as the wideout for the Steelers, now going to be the number one guy with no Antonio Brown. He's going to get all the targets he can handle from Big Ben. So look for Juju to really try to announce his presence, not just to his team, but to the league on Sunday night, trying to torch that New England secondary. But of course, whenever you're playing the Patriots and you're playing Bill Belichick, you got to always be prepared to have your number one weapon taken away from you. That's exactly what they've done every single time, and it works like a charm. They key in on whatever your number one offensive asset is, and they just go after. They try to take it away, and they make you beat them without your best player, basically. In this case, they're probably going to be doubling Juju Smith-Schuster. They're going to be following him all over the field. The Steelers are going to line him up on the outside in the slot. They're going to put him in all different sorts of packages, trying to get him some space, and I expect the Patriots to be all over it right there with him, making sure that Smith-Schuster is going to be contained as much as possible. So look for a big game from the running backs. James Conner is going to need to show up. Vance McDonald, the tight end, needs to have a big game for them as well. Big Ben Roethlisberger needs to be on his game early. He's got to be completing passes at a very high percentage because he's dueling against Tom Brady, one of, if not the greatest quarterbacks of all time on that other sideline for New England. He's going to come out looking to establish himself. Once again, he's already more than established, but he wants to show people that doesn't matter what the age is, he's still the best. So I'm expecting Brady to really come out and just do what Brady does and put on a display for the hometown crowd. A huge Sunday night game. And finally, another great thing to watch come Sunday for week one is going to be, of course, Kyler Murray's opening start for the Arizona Cardinals. He's going up against the Detroit Lions defense. Not a bad matchup for Kyler to get his feet wet here in the National Football League week one. He's got David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald as two really good safety valves in that offense to just get the ball to and get out of his hands. He can run. We saw that in the preseason a little bit. Struggled at times to the offensive line of keeping him safe, and that's a tough blocking assignment with a guy that runs that much. You kind of got to know where he is and be able to shield your man, but it'll be fun to watch the Heisman Trophy winner, almost baseball player, go out there in week one, and we'll see what he can really do when the lights are on him for the NFL. And, of course, the Lions are going to try to get after him. They're going to try to pressure him early, so we'll see how Murray handles that pressure in his first ever NFL start. We're going to take another short break here and come right back. You're listening to the GSMC Football Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
As we jump back into the GSMC Football Podcast, Davis Ellington here with you as we're going to look around the league at some more isolated players and give you a look at what you can expect come week one, just a couple days away. And we have to start with the latest news, of course, coming out of Raiders camp. It's Antonio Brown. Shocking but true. He's still in the headlines just a day ago, having a very aggressive verbal altercation with GM Mike Mayock after they fined Antonio Brown for missing a mandatory walkthrough and some training camp and practice time. Antonio Brown did not take kindly to the fine and had an aggressive altercation with Mayock, but by the end of it, we heard from his agent, we heard from the Raiders, they were hoping things could be resolved. It got listed that Antonio Brown would not be playing in week one at home on Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos. If you have a fantasy team, you saw a big 0 in the column for Antonio. That was why. And he looked like he was going to be suspended by the Raiders for his conduct. Everyone expected that to come by about today, maybe tomorrow. He was asked to stay home on Friday while the Raiders sorted out what they wanted to do with their star wide receiver. We heard from Steelers players that remained anonymous that they felt that the Raiders got fleeced by the Steelers because they knew they'd have to put up with Antonio Brown and all of his antics. Some other Steelers players made the statements that they were in shock at the turnaround of the personality that is Antonio Brown. He went from being a pretty reserved, well-liked guy to what's been becoming the newest NFL kind of diva, in a word you could say, of just the way he's conducted himself. It seems like every single day you hear something new about him in the league, and his conduct, of course, with the Raiders has been difficult for them to deal with, to say the least. No practice time means that he and Derek Carr have just not been able to work together. If you're not on the same page with your number one wide receiver, that's really going to derail your offense. And with Antonio Brown, now, all of a sudden, we go from hearing about him possibly being suspended by the Raiders to basically being definitely missing Monday night's game. Now they're saying not only will he most likely not be suspended, that he's likely to play in this Monday night game coming up at the Oakland Coliseum. So a real 180. And if you're looking at this from the outside, it looks like the Raiders as an organization really are just getting pushed around by Antonio Brown. He knows how badly they need him. He did apologize. They said that there was a very, very emotional apology given by Antonio to the Raiders and to Mayock and the entire organization, to his teammates. But if you're the Raiders, this conduct has been very suspect throughout the entire offseason. It looked like a suspension was coming. It seemed an appropriate action by the Raiders, but instead it looks like Antonio and the Raiders are going to be able to get past this. He very well might be playing week 1, which is a huge turnaround in the last 24 hours from suspension to being the number 1 go-to wide receiver. So it'll be interesting to see him on Monday Night Football in a John Gruden offense that he really hasn't had a lot of practice with. We'll see how many targets he gets. We'll see where he lines up. It'll be a fun game to watch as they take on a divisional opponent in the Broncos, who have a fantastic defense, mind you. They're a team that you definitely can't be fooling around with. You got to be on your P's and Q's offensively if you want to make it a game. So that'll be fun to watch with Antonio, number 84, suiting up for his new team for the first time in an official game. Then we go down to SoCal, where Todd Gurley resides for the LA Rams. Sean McVay made a statement that Todd Gurley will not be on any sort of a snap count or a touch count. He's going to be normal Todd Gurley, even though there's been so much speculation about his knee, how it's going to hold up, if he's hurt, if he's not. As of right now, it's all systems go for big number 30, and that's a huge sigh of relief to all Rams fans. You know how important Todd Gurley is to that team, is to that offense, and he's going to be there week 1, no limitations whatsoever. And then to look over to the other side, to the Philadelphia Eagles. And we're going to stay in the running back arena, however, as we've heard that the Eagles made an offer to the Chargers in an attempt to get Melvin Gordon. And they offered, allegedly, Jordan Howard and a mid-round swap of picks for Melvin Gordon. Of course, the Chargers turned that down. It's been reported that the Chargers are looking for a first and a fifth-round pick if you want to get MG3 from them. But Melvin Gordon, as great of a talent as he is at the running back spot, and he's one of the best in the league, had a fantastic season last year. He lit it up in college for the Wisconsin Badgers, setting record after record for them. However, he is not a very attractive free agent at this point, or trade candidate right now. When you think about it, the team that acquires Melvin Gordon not only has to pay him for a brand new contract, you also have to make sure you sign him in the first place and he comes and plays for you. So if you trade for him now, you have to work out this new deal for him, and then you have to pay out a brand new contract to a player you don't really know how they're going to fit in your system. Melvin Gordon, we've seen now with this problem of getting him to sign, that's a turnoff already for teams. Then you got to think that if you trade for him, you got to spend a lot of money out of your pocket to get him on the field and get him signed to a long-term deal. Is that money worth it right now with what we've seen from Melvin? It's a tough one to call right now. If he fits a need later in the season, I could see him getting moved around the midpoint of the season when teams are kind of seeing whether or not they're going to be in the playoff race and see if they need help at running back. As injuries occur, Gordon will become a more likely candidate to be traded. But right now, there's just not a lot of action on his phone line because it's such a difficult situation for the team trading for him. You have to basically allocate all this money to this new contract, you really have to change your perspective on what your offseason plans are going to be. It's a lot of work for that team that's going to acquire him, so it's going to be a tough sell by the Chargers, a tough sell for Melvin Gordon. So you might look to see Melvin eventually suit back up for the Chargers in this season. It might just be too hard of a move for either side to make, so that's something to definitely watch out for as the season goes on. No sign that his holdout's ending anytime soon, so it's an interesting storyline for sure. But like we've said earlier, he's going to have to play by Week 10 if he wants the season to count toward free agency, so we're not going to see a complete holdout like we did from Le'Veon Bell, but we could very well see something close to it as the season progresses. And the Chargers, a good team with good offense, they need MG3 in that backfield to really be contenders. And will that pressure from teammates and from friends be enough to get him back in the locker room on Sundays? We'll have to see as it goes, but Week 1 is shaping up to be a good one here. The NFL season always brings new joy, new life as teams, the records are wiped clean. It's a fresh slate. Everyone's excited for what they're going to see. You got so many rookies that get hyped up in the draft are going to make their debuts for teams, and everyone's excited to watch their guys go out, go to work, and hope that maybe, just maybe, they can find themselves playing on Sundays in January. But that will do it for us for the football podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm Davis Ellington saying thanks for listening. We'll see you next time back on the football podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.